Good morning. Today is a special day. I, like many others, will celebrate this day and give thanks for those who bring life. But today, I want to do something a little bit different. Today, you will see a lot of what you see every year on this day. You'll see people sharing letters that they've written to the person that brought them into this world. You'll probably be able to look through your social media and also see photos that mean a lot to them, for the people giving thanks and showing their appreciation and whatnot for that special person. Which is something that I've done in the past as well. To give you an example, each year on this day, to celebrate the womb that I came from, I've done different things over the years, and it's important to do that because it proves that you genuinely thought about it. And if you are thoughtful, it's not hard to come up with something different and unique every year, because that person for you is unique, and you to that person are also unique. In the past, I've made heartwarming videos. I've also written poetry. I've also just penned a really heartfelt letter before. But the reason why today is different is because I have a story to tell. It is surprising even for me, but I'm going to tell this story today because typically you know what you're going to do So your own behavior and your own ideas should not be a surprise to you. I did not hurt her, so don't bug out. The only reason why it would be surprising even to myself is because when you do things naturally and you're genuine, you don't have to plan them. I think that the main reason why it was surprising to me is just because I've never shared this completely with another human soul other than the person that was there. I have only been strong enough in my 40 years to be able to speak about it partially in bits and pieces with a select couple of individuals. But unfortunately for me, when you go over the arc of my history and my life, due to the way some people are, it was probably dismissed, half listened to. But that's okay too, because it's not something typical and it's not easy to understand. But that's why I'm here today too. About 21 years ago, circa 1999, I was incarcerated. Again. To my surprise, this particular vacation was different from the others or the ones that would come in the future. During this particular incarceration, it was apparent to me from the outset that this was going to be a unique intellectual experience. I was housed with someone who was breaking something down to me one day, because in the city where I'm from, the jails are very antiquated. I know and understand that it's that way for a reason. It's to make people suffer. And I know you're wondering what this has to do with this holiday today, but I will illuminate, so just bear with me. One day, after people were done fist fighting over control of the television, which is so genius, makes perfect sense, right? I sat down and chopped it up with someone. At this time in my life, I was not a religious person. I would grow to understand it later and become a part of a religion. But at this time, I think this experience was unique primarily because I had no religious affiliation or real experience in spirituality, at least organized spirituality and religion. So, in order for this whole story that I'm going to tell to unfold, in that moment, had I been affiliated with any of those things, there is a high probability that I would have not have been receptive to what this person was going to tell me that day. because of the way dynamics amongst organized religions unfold very similar to gangs. Yeah. So this person I had went to, I want to say, junior high school with. I knew him, but I was not personally friends with him. We had mutual friends. But he was always nice to me, and despite my alter ego or my persona or my flaws, you know, he never judged me for it. We never treated each other any differently because some of our mutual friends were enemies. But I'm a very open-minded, honest, genuine person. So when he was like, "Hey man, come here, let me holler at you," you know, because everybody else was on some group think, let's be ignorant and fight each other and start a little fiefdom over fucking watching TV. So I go over in the corner and I sit down and he starts talking to me about Islam. Previous to this, I had little to no understanding of any religion, so being that it's Islam has little bearing on the story other than wherever he pulled this concept from that he talked to me about that day, you know. So we began to have a conversation, and in order to keep this story that I'm telling today structured, I won't go into every detail, but the gist of the conversation revolved around why I was there. Why are you here? Why are these people here? Why is anyone here? It's very easy to say, I broke a law, I got caught, I got jailed. Which are all true, but it's surface, you know. And he broke down some things that at that time, although I believed I was smart or intellectual, like Socrates, I found out that day that for as much as I knew, I only knew nothing, like no matter how much you learn during your life, there's always going to be things that you don't know. And that's the true mark of intellectuality and intelligence, is to know that there are things that you don't know. Therefore, the only thing I know is that I know nothing, So he proceeds to tell me, the reason why you're here, the reason why I'm here, is based on trauma. All these years later, there is not a major religion that I have not studied their text deeply. And he tells me that in order to break this cycle and stop coming to places like that was to understand where the trauma came from, and how it ultimately led me to be there sitting on that bunk. He began to break something down to me called regression therapy. Now, for the uninitiated, it is a hypnotically induced therapy that is primarily utilized in specific types of cases, such as rape survivors or violent crime survivors or traumatic, like accidental injury survivors, especially if it happened when they were young. Like, say a child is hit by a car a young person is hit by a car as a child, and say maybe they recover, you know, and later on, they're living their lives as a regular adult and whatnot. You know, that's what I mean. It's easily Googleable, and you can find out what I'm talking about if you're hearing this and you don't understand. So he broke down the whole concept to me. And it was new. Like, I had never heard of this before. I mean, of course, you hear of hypnotism, but you typically look at it as like a parlor trick or something that magicians do, stuff that they do at kids' parties or something, or like as a comedic prop to have the crowd laugh because somebody's barking like a dog or behaving like a chicken. You understand what I'm saying? You dig? So, but I took that, and being the person that I am, I'm not dismissive of anyone. And just because an idea or something that somebody breaks down to me is something foreign to me, or even something that I may disagree with, I don't just automatically throw up that shield of cognitive dissonance. I didn't just dismiss him because he was Muslim. I didn't just dismiss him because something that he was talking about was a therapeutic tactic. You know, because especially in city environments, people downplay or ridicule the benefits of therapeutic measures to heal a person. Now, at this time, I had none of the storms or darkness that I had in my future and didn't know about at that time. So fast forward years later, after these storms had already began and these things that I was going through, that I was going through, that were wreaking a lot of destructive energy on my life. I reflected on that conversation, and it's remarkable because I didn't even particularly remember it. Like it hit me one day, like maybe I should look into what he was talking about. And this is like a decade, it was a long time later, man. So I found somebody, this miracle of technology that I'm communicating with you today on is a good example on how, if anybody were watching these videos, they could be able to receive whatever message I'm putting out there and stuff like that, even if they're not where I'm at geographically. So I used the internet to seek out someone trained in hypnotic therapies. And I underwent the procedure. And the reason why I'm sharing it on this day is because it's directly tied to our celebration today. We celebrate the feminine today, the womb, the earth, these things that culminate in life for us as a species. So fast forward, the experience is done, and I'm going to explain it to you. So in this therapy, depending upon what you're searching for, it can be similar to kicking back and watching a DVD. What it does is it replays things for you that you may have been unaware of, that you observed, but through the destructive nature of trauma, it was buried somewhere in one of these cavernous areas of your brain where you process your past and things of that nature. What I delved into that day with this person was my birth. And the reason why I've never talked about it to anyone other than that day was because it was so deep and so hard to understand that I couldn't wrap my head around it, you know? But ever since I was an early teen, like say 13 or 14, for about 10 to 12 years after that, I would have a recurring nightmare, you know? But it was very unique. It wasn't like the boogeyman chasing you, or fear of drowning, or fear of heights, which is typical of common subconsciousness activating through your dreams. You know, where fears that you may have in your waking moments manifest themselves in your dream state. So, the story goes like this. My mother had a child before she had me. And because I've spoken to her about this, I don't think that her previous childbirthing experience was easy either, you know? But it was nothing like what happened with me. And that's what makes what happened with me so unique, you know, because if things wouldn't have shaken out the way that they did, I wouldn't be sitting here, you know? And these things happen every single day. At some point during the later stages of her pregnancy, you know, I guess that, and through our conversations, she discovered, like, you know, something ain't right, you know. I was supposed to be born in December, if I'm not mistaken, either late December or January or something, but I was actually born on the 14th of October. So from that quick math, that is severely premature. That is like, it's bad, you know, like. But the reason why that ultimately happened was part of this discovery that I made with that repressed memory, you know? This nightmare that I used to have all the time. The only thing that I could discern visually at first were colors. A dark purple, a mixture of red, oranges, and yellows, and a fluid. As far as physical feeling, the only thing that I was aware of was that I couldn't breathe. Now, as a teenager, and I'm having these dreams, I'm thinking like, this is water that I'm in, or I'm drowning, and that's why I can't breathe. Later on, when you're an adult and your mind is fully developed and you're able to grasp concepts like birth difficulties, that's a little bit easier to understand, you know, like, what was happening to me is that fluid that I was seeing in my dream was amniotic fluid. those colors that I was seeing were lights, like because my mother's belly was exposed, you know. Similar to how if you close your eyes and you look at the sun, you can still, that light is being projected through this veil, when your eyelids are closed. Get down! Get down! During this later stage of the pregnancy, when it was obvious that something was wrong, I think that was a good thing that she noticed that. Being that she had a medical background, she knew, like, I got to take care of this. I got to make sure beyond all shadow of a doubt that my baby survived. So fast forward to my birth, what actually happened was the umbilical cord was wrapped around my neck. And I was dying, along with the fact that internally my mother was dying from the trauma. For some reason it wrecked her insides, and she had like severe bleeding. Like, she almost passed. There was discussion in the hallways of the hospital what to do. And I won't name who, but I know who. And it's not for me to be bashing people, but someone suggested, the baby is already having these issues, and with the doctors telling them they could save the mother easily, but it would be a stretch for the child. And if they did save the child, that the child would be severely damaged goods. I salute my father for not going for that. So, I was birthed by cesarean section. I was severely premature. I had spinal meningitis. I was underdeveloped. And there's no rhyme or reason for why I'm very muscular, strong, and healthy now. Why I played sports easily. And despite the fact that I was very tiny, excelled. Other than my parents working with me religiously on making me stronger as a little one, and that had to have been tough because, I was so fragile and tiny. Like, a strong wind could have blew me over. And I remember feeling like that, noticing how much bigger other kids were than me, which is where the irony hits when I'm in my early 20s and I look like a bodybuilder. When I look back at the other pictures when I was a younger person, I was a stick figure, So during this therapy, this person was telling me, like, this is what happened to you when you were born. And this is the part where, like in a movie scene where they stop the score and they set the camera in front of the person, and in that silence, the person has that aha moment, But the unique part about it is I died. So clinically, during the birthing process, I was touch and go, meaning I was going from this existence to the other. And obviously, if I'm sitting here talking to you today, Obviously, if I'm sitting here with you today, I'm on this side. And the deep thing about it is, like I said, I've mentioned bits and pieces of this before to some people, but not to a deeper extent. The parts that I left out is because people are so judgmental that when I had struggles in my life, people threw me away completely, disrespected me, ignored me, turned their back on me when I needed help, just completely shit on me, and it took me years by myself, alone, to repair myself. And that's important to understand when I tell you this next part of the story. The dream would transition from me, observing those lights and feeling something. I couldn't tell what this wrinkly thing that's like a cord or something, like a hose, like a garden hose or something, that I couldn't get off my neck. And as a teenager, you can't put this shit together, because you ain't studying birth. You may be studying women, but not on a medical scientific tip. So the dream transitions to me sitting somewhere in a chair. And I look to the right of me and there's another chair next to me. And in front of me is like what today would be like a big screen. Now at 13 or 14, you're not understanding none of this, And at those times, there wasn't technology like this anyway. So I didn't have a frame of reference for what was happening or what I was looking at, Also, what was completely mind-blowing was I wasn't the 13 or 14-year-old person that I was at the time of having the dream. I was an adult, and I didn't recognize myself. I didn't know like this was me as an adult, So I felt serenity. I felt peace. I wasn't nervous or apprehensive during this experience. And just at the moment when I began to wonder, like, what is happening? Why am I here? What's going on? I'd see somebody out of my periphery walk by me and sit down next to me. And I remember looking over to look at them, but they had no face. It was like a mist. There was a body below it, a regular body, but behind the mist was a light, a bright light. And it had a voice like a human being, and we communicated. It just talked to me. And it was similar to when you're at the crib and you're, watching Netflix or something, and you're just kicked back and enjoying a movie or something. And on the screen, though, was me, my story, and things that hadn't happened yet. As well as things that happened in my young years that I remember. Some of my first memories, the first time I did something wrong, the first time I felt fear, the first time I felt lust, all these things, And this person was explaining to me, like, you're here for a reason. We're watching this movie. I'm speaking to you, and it's because you have a choice to make, But it told me, like, you don't have to physically make this choice. You've already made it, you just don't know it. But it's important for you to watch this movie and understand these things before these choices, are part of your waking reality, and I couldn't discern whether it was a male or feminine energy because it didn't have a voice like a male or a female, And after the video was done playing or whatever, it was like, so since you've already made your choice, go on ahead, basically. But I needed to show you this. And it was awesome, man, because it was hard to not talk to anyone or share that idea or story with anyone, or that experience, because of how people are. There are people that have experienced near-death experience that probably know exactly what I'm talking about, but for other people, they're just so closed-minded that they treat me differently. And so it's important to share this today, because what I believe that experience was an ancient religion, the original religion, the one that built the pyramids and built the Sphinx. And that religion, which is where every modern organized religion derives from, there's a ceremony where your heart is weighed against a feather. That's what I experienced. For anybody that knows these things and studies these things, they know what process I'm talking about. But in the intervening years, I still didn't understand it, man. Like, it was so confusing. Later on, later on, after getting books online, maybe the right way or the wrong way, and studying their concept of birth, life, death, transition, all these things, I was like, oh my goodness, like this is exactly the same thing. Mind blowing, man. Like, it's not proper for me to say what I saw on the movie about the later stages of my life, because that's how it works. Whoever that was sitting next to me opened that door for me to come back here, and it's not for me to be like Marty McFly and run around from this time to the next manipulating things, But I wanted to share it today because my mother is so special to me, Despite her flaws, despite the fact that she gets on my nerves a lot and I know I get on hers. It was a miracle that she survived, that I survived. And that is no BS, man. None. And it means a lot to me that she, not only when she survived it, she never changed. And people who judge her mothering skills or judge her as a person, they have no idea, man. Even her own children, her own grandchildren, have no idea how special this person is. But that's okay, because her and I know. And that's all that matters. So today, I want to wish my mother a happy Mother's Day. And I've never told her this, so she's gonna find this interesting story right along with you today. I hope you enjoy it, because I do, man. But initially, I'm sure it's totally understandable that I was afraid when I'm going through this, and even when I came to an understanding of it, because that story is like a sci-fi depiction of things you see in cinema. The thing that makes it paradigm shifting is that I experienced it. It wasn't something that I saw in a damn movie or read in a book. And I think that's why there's so much joy on this day. Because this rock hurtling through space that we're sitting on, its energy and these people that we're celebrating today are one and the same. The fact that the earth and the mothers on the earth are an integral part of the cycle. Women in general and the sacred feminine are key. But for a lot of people, today is about a Hallmark card or flowers. For me, it's a celebration of my mother being strong enough to give me life. Y'all have a good one.